Thank you very much. Okay, our next company, Meridian Mining. It's a copper gold explorer developer, bringing 2 assets to production decision in Brazil, the Cabaçal and the Santa Helena. They've got 304 million shares outstanding, market cap of about 130 million, trade on the TSX Venture under the symbol MN as in Nancy O, and Frankfurt under 2MM. I'd like to welcome CEO and Director Gilbert Clark.
Thank you. Actually, we're on the main board. We're fast-tracked onto the main board by the TSX. I'm here today to talk about Cabaçal, Meridian Mining and the Cabaçal Belt. We are the preeminent developer of one of the most significant copper-gold VMS belts in South America. Flagship asset is the Cabaçal deposit, which is classified as a giant VMS deposit by the United States Geological Service. Quick disclosure. We have a dual strategy. We are developing Cabaçal through to production. At the same time, we are advancing another production asset called St. Helena. We released news on that yesterday. And we're doing greenfields exploration. We are Brazilian focused. We are not in the Amazon jungle. One of our criteria was to be, we were looking at new assets, was not to be in the Amazon jungle, urbanisation areas, or anywhere near any First Nation reservations. Economics from our PA last year on a post-tax basis, MPV 573 million USD, IRR 58.4%. That was using a commodity price of $16.50 for gold and $3.59 for copper. The capex is $180 million for a 2.5 million tonne plant. This is right in line with the capital intensity for Brazil. We're not looking to develop large underground mines, we're looking at open pit mining. This is how all VMS belts start, and the VMS belts go for decades. We are in our PFS, we're advancing that, it'll be released in Q1 next year. We'll be upscaling it to 4.5 million tonnes. Both Cabaçal and St. Helena were partially mined, Cabaçal back in the 1980s and St. Helena in the mid-2000s. That has created a very strong historical link with the 4 communities of prosperity. So we recently completed our community consultation period. We had nothing but positivity. So Cabaçal we have got over 55 kilometres. This is what we call the mine corridor. We have a number of exploration targets. In the south, St. Helena, it's 10% the size of Cabaçal, but 3 times the grade. Cabaçal, this is going to be the hub. This is where everything's going to be trucked into to be processed. At the same time, as we develop these hard assets, we are going forward and developing these exploration program. So Cabaçal, we're going to be doing the PFS, completing that. As I said, expanding up to 4.5 million tonnes. We're infill drilling to increase the resource confidence. St. Helena has the potential to be a high-grade open pit. I'm fairly confident on that potential, and as it is open. We're going through now the data gathering to submit what we call the first licence, called the preliminary licence. In the near term, we'll be producing that preliminary licence for Cabaçal, publishing the PFS, and then we're going straight on to feasibility. I have to really communicate, we are mine developers. We are trading at quite a discount to NAV, but what's interesting is that we don't have long lead times to get this into production, being in Brazil. At the same time with St. Helena, the first resource that's coming out in Q4, so it's coming out shortly. We're going to be doing an extensional and infill drill program. If anything we saw from yesterday's release, it's open and it's very high grade. And we'll be submitting the preliminary licence next year. Brazil is a destination where all venture capital is going for at the moment. It economically dominates South America, and the mining industry is first world. We've seen many recent cases where companies have gone there, developed, built, and had massive re-ratings. This is just a summary of the economics. All this can be downloaded from our website. What I will outline is the bottom left there, the quick payback. That's a reflection of the deposit's geometry and also of the topography. One of the main things when you look at these tables, you can always look at the far right, the big numbers, that's always very pretty, looks really solid. But it's the numbers on the left that count, because that's the numbers that the banks are going to look at when they go to project finance. So at $3.50 copper and $15.50 gold, we developed an MPV post-tax of $550 million with an IRR of 53.5%. This is a very robust deposit and an incredible belt. Currently we're trading at about 0.17 to NAV. We have seen recently in Brazil, massive returns on developers and then producers, and this is where we're aiming to be. When we look at comparative projects for profitability compared to low capex intensity and their market cap, you can see these companies that are much less prosperous than we are, trading much larger market caps. So we see potential for tremendous growth in our equities. Where do we sit in the cost curve? Where do we benchmark? Well, in Brazil is very easy, and they build a lot of their equipment in country, so it's very cheap. So when we benchmark across Brazil or across internationally, you see we sit right in the lowest cost quartile. Operating costs, again, we're sitting in the middle of the fairway for Brazil, and that's exactly where we want to be. By example, I guess industrial power in Germany's, I think he's sort of 15, 16 euro cents a kilowatt. In the PFS, I think the electricity we'll be paying is 3.9 US cents a kilowatt. So it's very interesting to see those cost differences between the West and the emerging country like Brazil. The deposit is large. It's over 2.1 kilometres. We've got two geometries here. We've got a flat-lying VMS system, and then subsequently there's been another system come through in imprinted high-grade subvertical gold. And you can see up the top north there, CD49, it was 53 metres, 11 grams. That's one of the high-grade gold veins. And as we go to the southeast, we then come into being a more richer copper-gold system. We can see that at the bottom there, 34 metres at 8.1 grams gold equivalent. That's is actually dominated by copper. So at a 0.3 cut-off grade, we've got about 60 million tonnes at about 1.05 gold equivalent. What's important there is that's recoverable gold equivalent. If you don't have metallurgy, I really encourage you to look at any resource statements metallurgy, because if you don't have metallurgy, you don't have cash flow, you don't have a mine. This mine was in production for 4 years, so basically we had a 4-year pilot plant. This is the absolute pinnacle of flotation. We crush it only very coarse crush, 200 microns. We take out 30% of the gold through gravity. We then produce a copper flotation. We recover life of mine 92.4%. We have a 28.4% copper concentrate, no detrimental metals. That also comes with about ½ ounce of gold and 3 to 4 ounces of silver. You're in Brazil, you want to have infrastructure, and we benefit from that legacy infrastructure when the mines are in place. We have 2 power easements to site. We are 20 kilometres from a highway, and we're 7 to 8 hours trucking to a railhead in Rondonópolis for direct export to Europe or to Japan. Exploration upside. We have a wealth of exploration upside, and we also have near-term production. So that means we can continue to advance the exploration, but in longer term, we'll develop the resource potential through net free cash flow, which means it's a less dilutive event. St. Helena, this is a wonderful opportunity for us. We have been drilling that over the last 12 months, concentrating on, for some reason, on the central part and the eastern part of the deposit. We actually did a trial hole to the western part of the deposit. It was an area that was essentially untested, and it turns out that to the west is actually quite a significant gold province. We hit a hole there that went, yesterday reported, I think it was 75 metres at 4.6 grams gold equivalent, of which 3 grams, it was 3 grams gold. Oh, here's the hole here. Again, we know what to do there. That mine was in production for a short time before the zinc price collapsed in 2008. We know what the flow sheet is. We know what the recoveries are. One difference is with the gold. We have identified that they did not have a gravity gold circuit, as we have in Cabaçal, and that can be up to 30% additional gold recovery. So we're very positive of where we see the network going forward. It's quite big. It's, at the moment, the exploration target's 3.3 kilometres. What we announced yesterday is we've got a continuous high-grade zone now over 1.4 kilometres. With the exploration target, the upper range is 7 million tonnes for approximately 763,000 ounces gold equivalent. Again, that's post-metallurgy. And the lower range of 3 million tonnes for 306,000 ounces. In our economic model, we generate these quite significant results. It does not include the high-grade feed from St. Helena. So that's only going to increase the economic potential of this project as we go forward. The copper, we produce 3 products there. We produce a gold doré, we will produce a gold doré, a zinc concentrate, and a copper concentrate. There's a lot of silver in this deposit, and from the historical records when they're in production, the silver content of the copper concentrate exceeded 600 grams per tonne concentrate. However, with Cabaçal, what we've been able to look at is quietly, we've accrued a very significant exploration package of nearly 1,000 square kilometres in 2 other greenstone belts, including Cabaçal. This puts us as the preeminent landowner in this part of the world. This was evaluated back in the 1980s by BP Minerals, that was subsequently bought by Rio Tinto. It was not the size that Rio Tinto wanted, so they just dropped it. So this entire package was then, pardon me, either held in the archives of Rio Tinto or in a small under-financed private co that we acquired the Cabaçal belt from. So really what we're looking to be is the next mid-tier producer in Brazil for copper, gold and zinc concentrates, primary copper and gold. Our corporate structure, when we started this journey in 2020, we were 95% retail. I just restructured the company. In that time, and since then, it's now approaching 60 to 65% institutional shareholding and high net worth. We have about 30-35% retail liquidity. We have price targets between $1.30 up to $2.50. We're covered by 4 banks. In our share registry is very unusual because we have, if you look at a mid-tier company, you'll see some quite significant institutional accounts because there's less risk. Yet those same institutional accounts are now actually shareholders in our company. The board is led by Bruce McLeod. He is recently sold Sabina for, I think it was 1.4 billion Canadian. Myself and Adrian, John Skinner, a well-known banker. Susie Sesselman, she's actually a retired banker, Austrian banker. If you go on a holiday in Portugal, she actually signed the project finance check for those freeways. Doug Ford, a very experienced gentleman. Neil Gregson was recently the MD of JP Morgan's resource desk. Our management team, we've been together for a long time. It's very important that you know the capacity of your team. But most importantly, in Brazil, we use Brazilians. We don't try and fly in experts. We build with Brazilians. So near-term upside, development. That's what we're looking at. Metal prices. We started off at a base, so we're exposed to the upside. We didn't start at ridiculous prices. We started with consensus prices. We present a significantly undervalued commodity and a company. Near-term development, simple mining. What's going to happen in the next 3 months, the next 12 months? PFS, you'll see the real economics. St. Helena resource, you'll see the upside. Discovery along the belt, you'll see the potential. This is all downloaded from the internet, from our website. You can also contact me at info@meridianmining.co, and this is the completion of the presentation. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any hands up? Oh, there we go.
Why are you still calculating with such low gold price, like $1,500?
Very simple answer. My background is not in speculation. I come from asset management, and if your project doesn't work at lower prices, you never get it built. When we release the PFS, we'll actually use updated banking consensus, and that at the moment, long-term banking consensus, gold is at, I think, 2,130, and copper's at 416. So those numbers will be updated to show modern numbers, but we'll also have a low case for the banks. I think the low case is now sort of 1,600 for the gold and about, I think maybe 365 for copper. They always take the low end, and we have to demonstrate if you've got a speculation, you'll use 3,000, 4,000 gold, but if you've got a production asset, you've got to see, will it work when the cycle turns? Oh, we can't. Once you've published these numbers, you can't update them to do your next NI 43 going on. So we have been using the numbers that were current in March 2023.
Any other questions? Well, we got a minute, so I'll ask one. You know, when you're moving from like a PEA to a PFS, a PA's got like plus or minus 30-40% or something like that. How do you deal and manage with expectations of, because there's, especially with rising costs, with those kind of situations and investor expectations?
When we did the PEA, it was peak inflation. So we'll see some adjustments. I think we're looking at about a 7 to 8% increase on capex just through inflation adjustments. At the same time, what we've been doing is doing a lot of infill drilling to get certainty. We started off with indicated inferred, and when we go to the PFS, we want to have almost entirely measured and indicated. And then I'm going to do a subsequent program where the first 3 to 4 years, based on the term of project finance, I'll ensure that all that starter pit is actually in measured. So what we're doing is hard asset development, and this is what drives revaluation. And then over the last, we have very tight shareholding, but over the last, I'd say over the last, 7 months, we've probably traded 85, maybe 90 million shares. We have quite high liquidity, which is very unusual when you have such a tight share registry.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.